The thought of vertical perspective may seem a little complicated, but really it's no different to our normal horizontal perspective. We see vertical perspective when we come up close to a tall building or a structure and we look up, and it's the distortion effect that's created from the position we are in relation to the object we're seeing. We also see vertical perspective, and we probably see it most commonly in photographs. It's the distortion that the camera brings into the scene for various reasons. But to draw, there's nothing that's difficult or to be afraid of. There are a couple of significant things that perhaps we need to be aware of, which we'll look at now. Hi, I'm Stephen Travers. I hope you find this video helpful in just getting our head around vertical perspective and how to think when we're drawing it. Let's have a look. So here we have a simple perspective diagram. We have here the dotted line, the eye level, and that represents the line which is level with our eyes. That's why it's called the eye level. It's also known as the horizon. Now on the eye level, we have a vanishing point on each side. These vanishing points are where all the horizontal lines of this building, this structure, go to, and we can see here I've included the vanishing point guidelines so we can see them, and it's clear that whether the horizontal lines are above or below the eye level, they all go back to the same point when they're on the same plane. Here we have a simple vertical perspective diagram, and just as in the more straightforward one, we have an eye level, but in this case, instead of being horizontal, the eye level is vertical. If you like, it's directly between our two eyes, right in front of us. It's the point directly in front of us where we're standing, and that's where we have a true vertical. Now, as you move away from that vertical eye level, whether it's to the left or to the right, the angle increases the same way it does above or below the eye level in a horizontal landscape orientation perspective. So the principle is just the same, except it's flipped up on its side. And of course, what really matters though is not seeing it so much in simple diagrams such as this, but to be able to see it in real life and to understand it so we can incorporate it into our drawing. So let's have a look at a couple of real life examples of vertical perspective and just understand some of the characteristics of it. Now here we have one of the towers in the British Houses of Parliament in London. We're standing some distance back and there's not really any discernible vertical perspective. There is some horizontal perspective. We can see here that the lines are angling back at an angle, much steeper on the right hand side, going back to two different vanishing points, but vertically everything looks pretty parallel. So what happens though if we move in much closer and look up so that we get a more extreme perspective and vertical perspective becomes very noticeable? How does it look then? Well, I did that as we were walking past. We walked right past it, that tower, and I looked up and I took a photo, and this is how it looks. Here is an extreme view of this. So to make it a little more obvious, I'll add some vanishing point guidelines and we'll just see how this does fit into what we've been talking about. And so here we can see that in fact these perspective lines do move up to our vanishing point that's on our vertical eye level, which goes through the center. Here we have a church tower in a small village in Germany. And the striking thing about this tower, I think, is how tall and elegant the spire is. In fact, if we do just a rough measure of the spire, we see that when compared to the stone tower it stands on, it comes right down to, well, almost to the ground. In this view from further back, there is no vertical perspective distortion happening. We get to see pretty much the proportions of this tower and its nice elegant height. But when we move closer and we look up, it's a very different story. We've moved now in front of this tower, in between these, past these trees, in between these trees, and we're looking right up, and what a difference foreshortening makes What a difference the compression of the tower as it moves further away from us makes. In fact, if we were to look at this tower again, remember we saw that it actually came down to, well, almost the bottom of the leaves. It really would come down from there to further, well, there. So we're looking at the whole length of the stone tower that we can see. That is actually the height of the spire in real life. But because of the foreshortening, because of the vertical perspective, we actually don't see that. In fact, it's just looking like it's that top part, which even at this angle is quite small. And again, when you look at the difference between these two sections foreshortened, the bit above this line looks considerably smaller. But again, if you were to look in real life, they're pretty much equal. So we really have to pay attention with foreshortening, that we draw what we actually see. And with vertical perspective, foreshortening becomes so important. So important. And if we get it wrong, we can draw towers that the higher up they go, they don't sit back. They look as though they're tilting forward, as if they're going to fall, as if they're midway falling over onto us. So foreshortening is really important with vertical perspective. Well, I hope that was helpful. If there's anything else about perspective you'd like a video on, please put it in the comments. And otherwise, I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.